On today's episode, we'll talk about the job of the boom operator, cop rock, 20 years of the Coen brothers movies, George Clooney, and of course, mirrors, mirrors, mirrors. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out The Breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, The Musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds.
Hey everybody, Danny Brown here, creator of The Knuckle Puck, and we at Knuckle Puck Camera are proud supporters of this episode of The Op. The Knuckle Puck is a camera accessory loved by operators and camera assistants alike that allows the operator to pan and tilt with precision and ease. Check it out at knucklepuckcamera.com and make sure to follow us on Instagram at knucklepuckcamera.
Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy The Op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Op, the podcast about operating, where we talk to operators and other people in the business about the art of visual storytelling. My name is Dave Comides, and I am your host for the next, hour and a half, whatever it's going to be. And we're here yet again, thankfully, from Panavision Woodland Hills in their theater, because it sounds better than my daughter's bedroom. Today, I am really, really excited to have actually the first boom operator we've had on this show, and it should have come sooner, but just didn't happen. Randy Johnson, who has been around for a long time and done a lot of amazing work, and is, he will hate me for saying this, one of the best in the business. A smattering of the, I think it was 157 things on your IMDb. Tragedy of Macbeth, where we actually worked. I think we'd worked before then, but we worked there. The Mandalorian, American Sniper, Good Night and Good Luck, which is just such a great movie. 6 Feet Under, great show. The Truman Show, Cop Rock, which I just think is hysterical because it was ahead of its time. Pretty Woman, and just because it's fun, the TV show Knots Landing, Dallas, and 8 is Enough, which I used to watch as a kid. And he has been part of the production sound crew for 6 movies that were nominated for Oscar Sound. One that won the Best Picture, and that was No Country for Old Men. 2 Emmy nominations, 45 years as a working member of IATSE Local 695, which is the sound union, and recently voted into the Motion Picture Academy AMPAS as one of the first boom men to ever be inducted, which I think is exceptionally cool and probably way overdue. I want to ask you about that. Randy, thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here.
It's this this is unbelievable. I was looking through your credits, and it's just like they go on. It's like every single thing is something I've seen and amazed by.
It's been a long and varied career.
So since this is a podcast about operating and operators, can you explain what you do as a boom operator for anybody who might not know?
Well, production sound, I'm the assistant sound person. So we watch a scene, whether it be just me or whether it's the full sound crew, and we watch it and kind of assess what our plan of action will be to capture the performance of the actors. In the earlier days, it would plant mics and booms, and that would be it. Nowadays, they may want or require, wires and everybody, which is fine. We still strive for the boom mic and plant mics because, the wireless mic is a tiny little mic underneath a shirt, and you got a $3,000 mic over somebody's head. Just by the very nature of that, it sounds much better. So we always strive for that. But that's what we do every day.
Yeah. I'm always amazed when I see when I work with someone like you who's just amazing at their job at how you dance through everything. And not that I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the scene during rehearsals or whatever. And actually, my thing always is, a really good boom operator because you don't realize that they're there, of course, because you're just right exactly where you need to be to get exactly what you need. And
it's kind of a low key position, I think. You're there, you're trying to assess your position with everybody else's position, and I will say probably a number of times in this interview, it's such a collaborative business.
No question.
And so if you're not watching everybody else's job and kind of seeing how you fit in there, you're missing some of the good points.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Before we get into other stuff, can you tell me your story, how you got here?
Well, as I always kid, it's like it all started in a small station, and but I went to college at Texas Christian University, Fort Worth, Texas, and majored in radio, television, film, and did a couple of films and this and that and stuff. And then I got out and moved to Florida and worked as a newscaster at a radio station in Florida. Pretty big station, but I looked around and saw a 35-year-old gentleman working alongside me, and I was 27. It's like, I don't think this might be the end-all, be-all kind of thing. So my friends in Dallas said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm working in radio in Florida." And they said, "Well, we're making movies in Dallas. Come on back." So I did, and I got there, and of course, the initial question is like, well, "What do you think direction you might want to go in?" And I thought, well, I've always kind of done radio, this, that, and the other, newscaster or DJ. I said, well, sound seems like an option, and that's about as you're heading 100 miles down the road in life, and you go right or left, right.
That's
about as
right.
far as I got in terms of how I got there. And I worked and did, commercials and stuff, but friendly, nice folks in Texas. And after a year or so, I realized that most of the people I was working with from L.A., so I moved to L.A.
Uh-huh. Well, how old were you at that point?
25, something
Okay.
like that.
And so you'd done like a couple features and movies and TV?
I'd done, I did a lot of commercials. I did, because in Dallas or in Texas, it's a right-to-work state. So I would one show be a grip, one show I'd be a boom guy, and I did a lot of documentaries as, in sound. I bought my own equipment, and much to my dad's chagrin, like, "You don't know anything about this, son. Take it back. They'll take it back."
So you were booming and mixing at the same time?
I was doing documentaries, which I loved. Back in the day when it was, a camera operator, an assistant, and me, and you just learned so much about so many different subjects that it was great. But in Texas, I did a lot of commercials, and I took on a couple of TV movies, which at the time I thought I knew what I was doing, but I realized that there's a whole larger aspect to different types of film projects, and I just wasn't ready. And you earlier were asking about, being let go, and one of them I was let go because I had no clue. They were moving fast. It was 10 pages a day. It was 6 people talking.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-man crew. I just was over my head. And
You were booming on that.
I was booming.
Yeah.
And
when you say you were over your head, sorry to interrupt, but you were getting in the shot, or you didn't know
getting the shot, or a shadow, or like, just a huge amount of stuff that I was totally unprepared for. And I still talk to the mixer. He's moved out here, and we laugh about it. We just had coffee the other day. He goes, "I'm so sorry I fired you." It's like, best thing that ever happened to me. Are you kidding me?
So you view that as it was a positive thing for you. How so?
Absolutely. And at the time, it was heartbreaking, and I think anybody that gets fired ever totally gets over it, but it's for a good.
Do you think your career was over? Was it that kind of thing?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't think it was over, but I thought I'm going to do a lot better. I learned a lot. It was like, okay, that's something I'm not going to let happen again.
Yeah.
Because I saw the issues that led me to that. It's like, a 2-man crew, should I be back helping the mixer move his cart, or should I be up here working the shot? And it's like, well, maybe I should go back and help him do that. It's like, no, don't leave the set. He can work it out himself. I'm up here.
Yeah.
Those things, I didn't know. So, I went through and we did, and it was fine. And then I moved to L.A. And I, luckily got in the union the first week I was here in L.A. It was the luckiest thing ever.
How you got hired on a show that was union? And they
No, I went around to different places, talked to production folks and stuff, and they went, "Yeah, but you get in the union, we'd be happy to hire you." And one of the last places on the Friday of the first week, I went to the union hall because I was a member of this smaller version union in Dallas, and so I talked to the business agent, and he kind of go, "Where are you from, son?" And I said, "I'm from Texas." He goes, "You know Jake Johnson?" I kind of knew him. He was the head of the thing. I was like, "Yeah, I know him." He goes, "Good man, that." So we chatted, and I left. And like an hour later, somebody called, Ryder Sound called, as a post-production house, and said, "We need a re-recording mixer tonight, and we don't have anybody." And Roy Brewer, the VA, goes to the secretary, he goes, "Call that Randy Johnson guy." So I get there, and, it's re-recording mixer is just hitting a button on an Ampex, like roll. It's like,
you can't screw it up too much.
You can't screw that up too much. And I did it, and then I did it on a Monday because they needed some more work. And then the head of Ryder Sound said, "Hey, we need somebody to kind of do transfer for a few weeks because our gentleman is out with the flu or something." So I did that, and I got to, I guess, 3.5 weeks, and the projects manager said, like, "We're gonna have to let you go, Randy. The guy's coming back." And it's like, "I will clean toilets to stay here, sir. I got 5 days. You can't fire me now."
Wait, because you needed 5 more days to get
5 more days to
union?
get to 30
I
days.
see what you're saying. Okay.
It was like, I see clearly where I'm at, and it's not good to be let go. I'm not going to get those days again.
Yeah.
So they found work for me, and I did that, and I got in the union.
Wow.
And then 3 or 4 weeks later, a operator, because I was doing ABC Sports stuff a little bit in Dallas, with my little Nagra recorder and stuff. He called me out of the blue and said, "I'm doing a documentary on any Sunday 2 around the world. Do you want to be the sound guy?" It's like, yes. So I went to the project manager and I said, "I'm quitting." He goes, "You're going to have to go in and talk to the boss, Leo Chalukian, who was started out as the shipping boy and bought the company, but he was a big bombastic sort of guy." So I went in and told him, I said, "I'm quitting, sir." And he goes, "You will never work in this business. I will guarantee it." And it was like, and I sat there quietly, and he goes, "So why are you quitting?" I said, "I'm doing a documentary going around the world as a sound man." He goes, "You got a post house?" And I went, "I was thinking of you, sir." And all of a sudden, he was my best buddy. And I took the sound to him and
That's great.
Started working. But I got in the union that first week, which was, just ludicrously fortuitous and just stupid. As my dad said, Randy was just standing on the right street corner, and they went, "Hey, you, come over here."
I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to on this podcast who have, the details are different, but the exact same story.
Same thing.
Yeah. John Toll was telling me that he worked for he was a PA for a documentary house, and they sent him to go check out the camera because they didn't want to pay a second AC, and he was like, "I don't know what to do," and they're like, "They'll teach you."
I'll tell you how to do it.
Exactly. So it's just every single person has that, and then but the thing always is, you don't know when the opportunity is going to come up, but you're ready.
Yeah.
When it happens, and that seems to be the key, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the things, opportunities like that where you kind of go, "Well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll give it a shot," kind of thing. And those always kind of, or a lot of times pan into something really, concrete and great.
So you went around the world with this documentary. How long did that go? We
were gone for, I didn't go around the world. I did, we went to New Zealand, Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, and then we came back to America and kind of did, different things around. We just followed the racers around because we were doing, for Kenny Roberts, who did road race, or some of the other guys in different, motorcycle things, and it was great. It was screaming down the bullet train to catch Kenny Roberts at the Yamaha factory, and having a beer in the Sapporo beer in the bar car, looking at Mount Fuji. It's like this doesn't
my
get any
job.
better than this, does it? I think I've attained my peak right there. But
It's the best part of this industry, right? Because and the thing that I always love is that you can be home going, I got to paint the garage, and you get a phone call and you're like, no, I don't. I'm going to Sri Lanka tomorrow or wherever. It doesn't always happen that way.
And I think I've always said, and I've been, like I said, I've been lucky. No work. I go walk the dog. When I come back, there's a phone call.
Or the other one is buy a plane ticket. Anywhere. It doesn't make a difference. As long as there's something to be lost there.
Right.
Yeah. That's great. That's fantastic. So you did that, and then but you probably still weren't known around Los Angeles, right?
I wasn't. And I did one thing that, I don't know whether they allow you to do it anymore, but the day I got in the union, or they said, okay, I went to the union hall, and they had a book of every production mixer in the thing, and I wrote down their phone number, and I called every single one of them. And I got work for years from that.
That's
and I always
great.
say, like, hi, Randy Johnson, new guy in town. I know you got a crew, but I'm just saying, if you don't, here's my number. I got a little bit of experience, and I'd be happy to do whatever you needed to do. People call forever. It's like, I had this number from last year, and you busy? Kind of thing.
That's amazing. With me, it was the LA 411 when I was assisting. I assisted for a year. And when I wasn't working, I would just go through and call DPs randomly.
Right.
And say, hey, 9 times. I remember it was always, my thing was always, I would hope people who are younger won't understand this, but there used to be a machine
Yeah, right.
that took your messages.
Yeah.
And I would always hope that the machine would pick up, because I was always nervous to actually talk to cinematographers. And if the machine picked up, I was like, oh, great.
Because you get some guys like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, let me get my thoughts straight here. My ducks in a row.
Hang up the phone. Yeah, exactly. So that's great. And then where'd you go from there? I mean,
I got back, and I did documentaries back and forth for a number of years, where I would do a show, and then I'd go do a documentary. And I loved the juxtaposition of 3 people running for a plane and doing something, and then come back going, like, with 100 people going, like, don't touch that. That's my job. It's like, I like that, whatever. But I got a call in 1980 from a boom guy who was doing a show, Alex Haley's show, Roots guy, and he said, I need a utility, but I will tell you now. He said, I'm an ex-alcoholic. I'm not a nice person, but I will teach you how to boom.
wow. And just for anybody who doesn't know, a utility is
the third, kind of the support person for the mixer and the boom person. They always did so much, but they do so much more today. It's not even a correct terminology for what they do. But at the time, it was just plugging in cable, running the Fisher boom out to the position, and that sort of thing, and doing second boom and stuff. And I said to him, Tom Cunliffe was the boom gentleman, and great boom guy, TV guy, but he, I said, my dad was a sergeant in the Marines. I don't mind being hollered at as long as I'm learning something. I'm good.
And by the way, kudos to him for being that honest. I mean, this is who I am, and if you want to, at least there's no surprises, right?
Right. I loved him for it. And there were times where the mixer and him, I'd be up on the Fisher, and they'd just be laughing at me, and I'd turn around and it's like, you could tell me what I'm doing wrong, or you could just continue to laugh at me. I don't,
And the Fisher's that big boom bowl you stand on, and
Fisher,
you sort of like a rod and reel. You almost drive it out,
right?
and reel it back in.
It's such an amazing tool, and so many boom men should use it. And I know that DPs and whatever, they're like, you can't bring that in here. It's like, it'll go through a doorway. It can go anywhere. And
I've almost never. Maybe once or twice I've seen people use it, but it's not popular by any means.
Well, it's because people go like, well, I've got the fish pole. I'll just do that. But it's like, the 25-minute take, sir. Your rotator cuffs are not built for 25-minute takes.
Of holding it over your head like that, right? Yeah. So is that what's so great about it, or is there other? Because I actually don't really know how one works. I've looked at, and it seems sort of fascinating. It's like there's like.
Well, there's
gears and stuff?
It just extends out and extends back.
Yeah.
But you do have the ability to
Angle the mic.
spin the mic
Yeah.
back. So as you go out on a fishpole, the mic is fixed. When you go out and you want to catch the over-the-shoulder voice of the maybe 4 actors in a group,
Yeah.
you can spin it back around and you are directly online.
Oh, interesting.
And you can just
Which you couldn't do with a traditional boom mic.
No.
Yeah. Interesting.
and the patterns are such that yes, you can catch the edge of the pattern and it's fine, but being on mic is being on mic. So if you're slightly off,
yeah.
maybe they don't hear it, but you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a great tool. I did a lot of shows with Fisher Boom, but I did one in '95 with Roger Deakins, and the only way we were going to do this boardroom thing was supposed to be, President Kennedy. It was 13 days. It was called.
Oh yeah.
President Kennedy and all the people in the thing. It was supposed to be the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
So they're in this long, long room. Lights coming in. Roger Deakins lighting it. All coming in from one side. So I had one corner to be in, and there's 17 feet out to the last person.
Oh wow.
And so it's like, well, there's a wall there, and Roger Deakins does not like to lose a wall. He likes to. Everything has to stay the same. So
Yeah.
some people might have lost a wall, and then I could go out with my 17-foot pole and reach back.
Drive out and drive
That didn't
in.
happen.
Yeah.
So it's like the only way I'm going to get done this is to have a Fisher Boom in the corner. That way I can extend all the way out. I can come all the way back and swing down to that gentleman and go back and forth. So I brought it in, and Roger, who lovely man, is so talented, but he goes, "You can't bring that in here." It's like, Roger, it's for you.
I can hear him say
I'm over the top of your lights, so I'm not curtailing your lumens, as he is wont to say. But it's for you, and it's going to make that work, and it did work, and it
Yeah.
was great.
That's great.
So sometimes, like any tool that you, as an operator, use, it's like, this is going to make my job easier, and I'm going to get the product.
Yeah, exactly. So was this guy true to his word? Was he cruel to you, and he taught you a lot?
He taught me a lot.
Yeah.
I would walk into a 10-foot set, 4 walls, and there'd be like 5Ks on 2 5Ks on each wall shining down.
Yeah.
And he'd walk in and go, "How do you do this?" And I'd be like, "It's impossible." He'd go, "No, it's not. Give me 2 shelves on those 5Ks. When they pan over here, I'll beat that shadow. Ready." And it's like, how do you learn that step besides somebody that knows how to do it? I mean,
Yeah.
there are no.
So he knew all the tricks.
He knew all
basically.
the tricks, and he was so unflappable. It's like, I got it. It's fine. We'll
That's
get it."
great. And how long did you work with him for?
We did. I guess it was back in those days, where they did however many
A season?
episodes. It was sort of like 32,
So close to a year. Yeah.
close to a year.
Yeah.
But we lived in the valley, and we worked at Sony, so I would pick him up, and we'd drive in, and he'd hole forth on.
That's great. That's
was great.
invaluable. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get. I don't think I'd be anywhere near as good a boom man as if it hadn't been for him.
It's one of the things that I wish that we could pull off, which is, well, COVID aside, and the world's changed a little bit. Maybe it's back. I don't know. If we were working right now, I could tell you. But is to take, in the union, take people who have just come in as a first assistant and have them trail an assistant for the day, where they're not working, they're just watching.
Right.
An operator to trail an operator. But there's insurance problems, and there's
Right.
business problems, unfortunately. But that would be the ideal thing, right?
It would
And
be.
sort of what you were doing. You were working, but you were just
Right. I'm just
taking all
getting
this
this
information.
invaluable
Yeah.
experience, and on as we move forward, it's like, no, don't do that. If you do that, that's going to happen. It's like, oh, okay.
So it's like
realize
you
that.
go to the next level of education, basically.
Right.
And so at the end of that year, did you feel pretty confident that you kind of knew somewhat what you were doing?
I felt better about it. I did, I think, a year or two, maybe a year more of occasional utility work, and I was with this one mixer who lovely gentleman, but he he said, okay, we got another TV movie starting next month. And I went, I'm not going to do it. He goes, why? And I went, because I'm not a good utility. He goes, yeah, you are. I went, no, I'm not. And you haven't seen it yet, but I lost interest. And I'm not, and, you'll see it, or you would see it if I did.
Yeah.
When you don't care, you don't do a good job.
I did 3 years on ER, and I was the A-camera or Steadicam operator. I was 26, 27, or 26 through 29.
What a tough show.
Tough show, but I was young, and it was unbelievable, and it was all Steadicam.
It was all Steadicam.
There was only one camera operator, right? So I was doing A and Steadicam. It wasn't all Steadicam, but it was a lot of Steadicam, and they were doing things like no one had ever done before on TV. So it was just, it was the greatest thing in my career, hands down.
Yeah.
But the first season I was there, they'd be going, Dave, you have to go home now. Like, we've wrapped and you have to go home.
Really?
You can't stand set anymore. And the second season, I was just like, I couldn't wait to get to set. And by the third season, I started to realize, I'm starting to go, we're doing this shot again and whatever. And I sort of saw the writing on the wall, and I just realized, and I could have stayed there forever, but I just realized I'm never going to be this young at this point in my career on something this big. It's never going to be like this.
Right.
And I don't want to keep going to the point where I'm sort of getting soured on this.
Yeah, I don't want to beat the dead horse.
And it was a tough decision, but I'm still happy I made that decision because I never got to that point where I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this again, Well,
that's what I think too. And I did TV series for a while, and then the second or third season, it'd be like, I'm going in that same door and that same thing. I don't know. I didn't get in this business to do that. And I would leave and move on to something else. And luckily, in those days, there was another bus that would pull up, and I'd get on that bus. But I would tell cable gentlemen that Harry needs a utility guy, and they're just new in the union, and they go, oh, it's so great, Randy. Thanks so much. And the end of the season, it's like, how you doing? It's like, I'm whipped. It's like, you going back? You go, oh yeah, I got to. It's like, no, you don't.
No, you don't. Yeah.
You get to choose. The ship is sailing, but you're not on it yet. So there is that thing, and I could be cavalier and say that myself, but I always felt that was something that I wouldn't have gone on to meet some of the great sound mixers that I work with in movies. And there's nothing, I love TV too, but I went on to do other things, and it's great. And there's a different sort of attitude between TV and movies, and there shouldn't be, because I was working on a show, and the mixer, who never did a TV thing, but he goes, we need an extra guy. And it's like, okay, and I gave him names of the guys, and he goes, these TV guys, are these feature guys? And I went, no, they're TV guys. And he goes, don't we want a feature guy? It's like, no, you want a TV guy that does features.
Yeah.
Because they know how to go quick. They can lay back if there's time to lay back.
But they can cut the corners when they have to.
They know how to, we need to go lickety-split right now, and they know how to do that.
Yeah.
So there's a balance that it's so great, and that's the training ground that everybody needs, I think.
Yeah, I did a show a little while ago with someone, feature, and the director said to me after the fact, we were talking about stuff that I've done, and he said, I like the fact that you've done TV and features, because when we're up against it, sometimes I'll look at you and you'll go, we could totally turn these two things into one, and we could just do that over there.
Right.
And you won't need this coverage. Because unfortunately, and it is unfortunate, that's just what you have to do in TV a lot. So you start thinking like that.
Right.
But on the flip side, did you ever work with Sean Bobbitt? English cinematographer. Anyway, I've done a bunch of movies with Sean and Steve McQueen. And when I work with Sean, on the first day, he'll come up to me, because I'm probably, I'm still in TV mode usually. He'll come up to me and he'll say, okay, you have one day. And I realize we're in feature mode now, and we take the time to do it right. And if we have to stop for 20 minutes to fix something,
That's
we'll do.
What he said.
He explained it to me once, and he just said, I understand, you just came off of 20 episodes of something, and you're in that mode.
It's a go.
You gotta calm down now. It's sort of like you were saying, doing a documentary and then go and doing something with 100 people. It's just a different side.
Yeah, and you have to kind of dial it back a little bit
and realize that you can take the time to do it right or whatever.
Right, because you still know what's right and what's wrong, and you also know that it's TV and it's a business, and we have to get the product today. And So,
like I said, it's unfortunate, but it's also really good to have that shorthand because when the sun's going down, you can pull it out of your back pocket and go, I know how to do this.
And sometimes, even on a feature, you got to do that too. I mean,
yeah, there's no question about it. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember on Tequila Sunrise, Conrad Hall, we're at the end of the day, and there's a shot with Michelle Pfeiffer and Mel Gibson, and they're at the beach, and the sun's going down, and it dropped, and I think somebody said like, "Well, we're done," and Conrad goes, "No, let's just shoot it," and it's one of the notable scenes in the movie. It's just silhouette,
yeah,
but it's great.
But most cinematographers would have said we got to come back tomorrow or whatever. Or
Connie, he was a bowl man, and
yeah,
and an incredibly talented man.
Good guy to work with.
Oh, one of my favorite people.
I've said this on the podcast before. I get asked like, what do you think of some of the best movies made? But Searching for Bobby Fischer is just some of the most beautiful cinema. And it's this movie about a kid playing chess. It's like this really small little movie, but he did the most beautiful work. He's so talented.
I always said, my thought was, like, they could have a light off with 3 lights, like, Connie, Deakins, there's so many others, but, 3 or 4. I would say I might put my money on Connie that he could make it look like, it's 3 lights. How could it look any different? But,
and was he one of those cinematographers who would make it look easy?
Yeah.
It would just go up and you go, this is, I mean, because I'll tell you, I worked with Roger on Goldfinch. I did a couple of weeks with him, and I when I wasn't working, I would just sit there and watch him light, and it was amazing, and it was frustrating at the same time because he just made it look so easy, and it looked so great, and he would even say, because I talked to him a little bit about it, and he would say like it's not really that hard, and what I'm like, yeah, but then everybody would be doing it.
Well, that's true, and I think on that 13 days I mentioned, Roger quit halfway through because Roger I can think of the director's name right now, Australian gentleman. He was more like, sorry, I'm doing my Australian accent, but my daughter's always like, Dad, you don't need to do it, but it's like,
you can go ahead, give it a shot.
Roger would say, I've got this color palette. Deakins would say, I got this color palette for this and whatever, and Roger, the director, go like, don't worry about it, Roger, we'll figure it out later. And Roger's like, no, now's the time. So he realized that it wasn't going to, he really wasn't going to have inroads into
meet
the creativity that he wanted, so he left. So they brought in Andrei Barkoviak.
Oh, yeah.
And Barkoviak's more of a hard lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And
Andrei Barkoviak was the guy who people had to wear sunglasses on his sets, right?
I mean, he's like Janusz. It's like welding with light.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but Andrei, is not a non-intelligent man. He saw it the day. It's like, man, Roger would light a scene and it would be beautiful and it would be soft light and he could shoot 4 different angles.
Yeah.
And he stopped that hard light the first day and started doing it like Roger.
Went there.
As much as he could. And because the first day, the mixer, who remained nameless, who I worked with, he loved the combative side of things. And it's not my way. But anyway, the first day, Andre has lit a hard lit, so there's no wall that doesn't have a shadow on it from my boom.
Uh-huh.
And the mixer came in. He goes to the director. He goes, "We got to do something different." And Andre goes, "This is my light." And don't you have radio mics? And he goes to the director. He said, "We've done 6 weeks. You've liked the sound, right?" He goes, "No radio mics."
Yeah.
And so the director looked at Andre and said, "You got to change the light."
Yeah.
And whatever it was, I mean, he had to do it because he was not going to make the schedule anyway with his sort of lighting.
Yeah.
It was more tweaky, and there was, it's hard light. It takes a little time.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
takes a lot more time, actually.
Yeah.
But no question. So and where'd you go? So one of the things that I didn't say when I listed off your credits is that you've worked with the Coen brothers for it seems like the last 20 years. Am I wrong?
I think 1999 or 2000. Peter Kurland, done every show, was a boom gentleman first, and then moved up to mixer on, I think, Fargo or Raising Arizona. But Steve Bowerman was his boom guy for years, and Steve decided to move up to mixer, and I'd worked a little bit filling in on, I think, Men in Black 1, and so Peter called, and I can't say enough about it. I mean, I've been lucky with a lot of great mixers and kind, wonderful people, but which has made this job so easy.
Yeah.
But Peter's just, he's one of a kind. He's one of the most intelligent people I know, one of the most, kind, and, his biggest thing, if you you did a good job on a particular scene, and, he'll hit the button and go, "What the hell's wrong with that?"
to say to you, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's like
over the headphones,
and that that you've hit the heights. It's like
that's great.
He's just just a wonderful person. So,
what was the first Coen Brothers movie you worked on?
For me, it was A Man Who Wasn't There.
Oh wow, yeah.
Which lighting wise, I think one quick story that I think we were in the middle of a scene, middle of the night in some abandoned grocery store or something, and it's like 2:30 in the morning. It's like, what are we waiting on? It's like Roger's setting a light down at the end. It's like, well, let's get after it. Come on, it's 3 a.m. And then I remember seeing in the screening that scene. It was like, holy crap, that's gorgeous.
Yeah,
I'm glad we waited.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. So, so have you worked on every movie that they've done since then?
No, they did Burn After Reading in New York, and they hired a
local guy,
local lady there,
local
and I guess I worked a day or so when they came back to town here, but apparently that was the one that they used Chivo on, and Chivo's, there's a certain way that the Coen brothers work, I think, and Chivo's very, I mean, he's Hispanic, he's very out there and big and that sort of thing. So, so I don't know whether they ever
they didn't connect.
They ever, meshed in that way, and it was a lot of glass, which you really got to work. I've done a few shows where it's glass. You got to work with the operators. Like, okay, I'm here. No, I'm here. Is that good? I won't move. I'm staying here.
Yeah.
You got to work that shot so hard, and there was a few times where the lady just either didn't find the spot or something, and Chivo was not supportive in any way. Like, I don't really care about what your problem.
And Chivo was operating as well. Probably
he was operating. Yeah.
I got you. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was bad.
Didn't go well.
So then I did the next few shows, but then there was a show a number of years later in New York, and Joel and Ethan were nice enough to bring me, and I think it had something to do with Randy hadn't been in the shot much, maybe, and it was kind of a lower budget, like all Coen brothers are not huge budgets, so the fact that they took me was
significant.
To me, and my story always for that at the wrap party for that show, Joel said something about, Randy, we hesitated to bring you because it's a small budget, but in the final analysis, we're glad we did. And
that's high praise right there.
Oh, it was great. And right after that, the Teamster guy goes, "Hey, Randy, the van's here. He's going to take you back to your apartment." And it's like, I think I'm going to walk. And I walked across Manhattan. It was just like,
that's great. That's great. Well, I'll tell you, I got that call to work on Tragedy in Macbeth, and I'm finding out information. I'm like, first of all, it's not Joel and Ethan, but at least it's Joel.
Right.
So it's half of the bucket list I always wanted to do. And then it's Bruno Delmanel and Andy Harris is there pulling focus. I was just like, you got to be kidding me. And then I showed up and you were there, and it was and it was very clear to me that you were part of that family. I mean, it is a family. It's like a group of you that all work together. It's like every
Peter's there. I'm lucky enough to, Peter and Joel and Ethan have a long history of relationship, and there's a trust there, and it's great. On True Grit, Peter, sadly, his dad passed away, so he goes, I can't do the show, and so Peter said, well, Randy could mix it, and so they had a little kind of a round robin phone meeting with me, and Joel goes, Peter says you should be the mixer. He goes, he said, there's a couple of somewhat prickly personalities on the set, no names, and he goes, you seem to work well with them. He said, so I'm suggesting that maybe you keep your job that we like, and we find somebody to take over.
Meaning they were smart enough to know we need you in the trenches to help sort of smooth things over and make people
maybe
comfortable.
There is. I won't name any names,
No,
but there's some folks that.
But I was going to ask you about that because it's one thing that I ask operators. I mean, you work you work actually very closely, more closely in many ways with actors because you're wiring them and whatnot. What is that relationship like?
It's usually quite good. I mean, we all have some actor stories that where it's not so good, but they're by and large lovely people, and they understand the concept of the whole thing. It's like the Tom Hanks thing. It's like, do with me as you will. You know how much money I'm making? Kind of thing. I mean, that attitude is like,
that's him.
He's just
right.
silly and kidding, but he knows that these things have to take place and stuff.
And how do you? Tom Hanks is a little different because number one, because everybody knows Tom Hanks is wonderful.
Right,
but also, the minute you meet him, you're like the nicest person I've ever met. But how do you think you gauge an actor that you don't know, that you haven't heard about, like maybe someone who's not famous, to see whether they're the person who's going to be receptive to working with you or working against you, or not against you, is the right word.
You do get some input in those first few scenes with an actor that I try not to I'm just the boom guy. I'm just trying to capture performance. And that's what I approach every single day with, even the difficult actor, the great actors, whatever. It's like, I'm here for you. I really, and anything I can do to get your performance recorded and not, God forbid, change your performance in any way, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So, if you get an actor's like, well, I can't do this or I can't do that. We had a lady on a pilot that she was new and beautiful blonde lady, but the first I walked up to her and I said, we'd like to put a radio mic on you. She goes, I don't do radio mics. It's like, okay. So I planted it on the bar in front of her and, trying to be, collaborative and stuff, and it worked.
Yeah.
And then I told the producer, I said, she didn't want to wear a radio mic. She goes, what? Well, you tell me. She's one more scene in a week or so. You tell me, and I'll deal with it.
Yeah.
So a week later, and she's got this scene in a chair, and she's smoking a cigarette, and it's a wide shot. And I said, we'd like to put a radio mic on you. And she goes, again, I don't do radio mics.
Yeah.
So I told the producer, and he goes, what? And he didn't come in. He wouldn't come in, and so we planted a mic, and it was too far away, and he came up later and said, did it work? And I went, no, it didn't work. And I said, and I'm just a boom guy, but I would say, if this goes to series, and she's in it, you just created a monster.
Yeah.
Because, everybody's got to work together, and she's a smaller part too. I mean, you got to be collaborative in some way.
And the crazy thing about it is she's actually hurting herself because
she's hurting herself.
She's hurting her performance, how it's going to play on screen and whatever.
I mean, some actors like to ADR. Some are, think that's the greatest thing. But it seems to be a pain in the butt to me. I can't imagine that I would have the same emotional whatever actors need to get to that point when I'm sitting in a room.
Yeah, for anybody
6 months
listening who doesn't know what that is, ADR is automatic dialogue replacement, and I've actually done it as when I directed. I had to sit in on some sessions with ADRing, and it's the sound's bad, so they play it up there, and the actors have to say the words again to match up with their lips, and I don't understand how anybody would like doing that.
Yeah, I mean it's the words, but then
no, the inflection and
God forbid it should be like some. Crying, emotional, whatever. Good God, how would you ever get there?
No, it's horrible. But that's interesting. So let me talk to you about working with operators. What do you when you think of the good operators or the great operators you've worked with? Is there like a through line of something that they have, something about their personality, how they work with you? What makes a good operator to work with? To
me, the great operators I've worked with. They are the person. I mean, nowadays it's a video assistant. Everybody and their mother is back there, like I see a little something in the corner over there. But I mean, operators looking through the lens. They are the purveyor of that frame, and they have all these other departments: boom, set dressing, props, wardrobe, that are waiting on a word from a good operator, like. Susie, the collar's up on this thing there. Randy, come down, right there. Don't go any lower than that. Set dressing, can you move? You just spin that Coke can to where it's not showing Coke or showing Coke or whatever.
Yep.
And it all happens, and a good operator, it all happens minutes before we roll.
Yeah.
And that information is going to come. It's so comforting. The operator's like, he's got my back. And I've got his back, and I'm going to, make sure that where he said, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And that's a trust thing that I try to, new operator, whatever. The first day, I try to get the trust of the operator and the DP.
How do you do that?
Just by going up and saying, like, Randy, kind of introducing and kind of, being there the whole time, where it's like, I've got a shadow over here. Is that I'm not going to go there until so-and-so. And his relationship builds over a day or so. And it is that, and you know it too, it is that first day or 5 days on a show. It's like, that's a make or break. For all crew members, for the sound department, to the camera department, or, directorial to all departments. It's shakedown, and it happens every time, and it's really important to be on your best game.
Because by week 2, you're no longer firing the new guy.
Right.
That's exactly.
I mean,
right.
it's tough, and it's something that it's very important. Not that you would go slack on the second and third week, but at least you look over at Bill, and it's like, Bill, am I okay? There's that collaborative thing that everybody has to have. Their dolly grip, or, and it's a great collaborative thing. I did a movie with a few years ago called Vice with Bill Coe. Was
Bill Coe, sure.
Lovely, wonderful. Talk about a resume.
Yeah.
And it was a film shoot, which we hadn't done too many of those years. And Bill was standing there toward the end of the show, and he goes, "This is why I got in the business. This operator, camera assistant standing by the camera, dolly grip, boom guy. This is the group."
Yeah.
And he goes, "I love it." He said, I miss it because now I'm stuck in some monitor in some other room, which is fine, and I get to look at it more closely, but it's not that same dynamic that was pretty nice.
It loses a lot of the humanity when the operator's in a room and the assistant's somewhere else on a headset, and it's like you and the dolly grip are the only people in the room
people there.
Sometimes.
My joke thing, I did a TV show 2 years ago, and we were outside. Everybody was inside because Steadicam was Steadicam and me, and camera assistant's on the inside on a monitor, and everybody else is on the inside. So the sound mixer set over the headset. She goes, "Are we rolling?" And I look at the camera operator and I said, "Are we rolling?" He goes, "I don't know." And it was like, holy crap.
Because he's looking at a Steadicam monitor, which probably doesn't have the blinking light on there, so he's got to find it somewhere on the camera.
Who's in control here? Just like,
or by the way, and there was one show where I did, and I don't remember. I think it was in the monitor, but they had some sort of setting that when they were rolling, a red outline went around the entire image, and it was funny because the first day the assistant came in and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize it was on. Let me turn it off." I said, No, leave that on.
Yeah,
He goes, "It's not distracting to you?" I said, "No, it's comforting to me because it's actually something large that's showing me that it's rolling."
Tells me that I'm actually
and I mean, I've told people this many times before, is one of the things that I miss about film, and it took me a long time, not a long time,
to see it.
But it took me a long time to change over to this when we went to digital. Was with film, you do the rehearsal, Steadicam especially, but handheld and even on the wheels. And then when they rolled, there was this vibration that you would feel. And it just was this thing that I never thought about it before that. But it was this thing that like something important is happening. Like this is it, And then when we went to digital, it wasn't there. And I realized, I have to force myself to recognize that.
To go into that mode.
Yeah. It was very strange.
That's wild.
And then when I went back to film the couple times that I did, I'd get the rig on and I'd hold the Steadicam and roll and I go, "Oh, this is so great." There's just something that was comforting about it. I don't know what it was. It was very strange.
You need a little tiny gyro thing.
You
need
like the thing on the iPhone that buzzes or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and then someone would get upset about the sound. Would probably get upset about it.
Right. You're really, I hear this noise.
So you mentioned Steadicam, since we were talking about that. So if I'm a newer operator, right, and I show up and I'm doing some big Steadicam shot, and you're the boom operator, you've got much more experience than I do in your department than I do in my department.
Mm-hmm.
Do I just walk through it and assume that you're keeping an eye on what you're keeping an eye on, or do I, check with you on everything, or
I think the boom person, I always like to be right behind you, the Steadicam person, because I'm watching the monitor. So there are times where camera assistants or dolly grips have said, like, you're too close to the operator. It's like, I'm not, believe me, that's the last thing I want to do is touch the operator in any way.
Yeah.
But I like being there, and from documentaries, running and doing whatever, I got some experience being closer to the camera. I don't know, but I think Steadicam is always great for me because I know that by and large, the camera is going to access a frame that it's going to allow me to boom.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. I mean, why would you have Steadicam in some
exactly. You're going to be able to get the mic in there.
Crazy thing.
Yeah.
But so I'm right there with the operator where I want to be. Whether it's the operator on a camera or the Steadicam,
And that said, if you're moving through a space and there's a mirror, there's a glass thing or whatever, I'm assuming you want the Steadicam operator to walk you through and go, "Okay, when I come over here, I'm going to be standing here. Where are you going to be, and where's the boom going to be?"
Absolutely.
Just so you can, check your marks and make sure.
Yeah, because, that's a small monitor that you guys are looking at. I'm always shocked that you can see as much as you do see. So, like with every operator, I like to make sure, like, here's that shadow over there. Now, it's a ghost, but can I... Because when you go there, can I bury it between the table there if I promise I just stay there? And I've had operators also say, like, just go there and don't move.
We won't see it. Yeah,
we won't see it.
Yeah, I'm always amazed actually when I work with good boom operators who can go, there is a shadow there, but if I keep it right on the side of that, that cupboard, it's not going to look like anything. Are you okay with that? I'm always like, and I remember, usually I go, they're never going to get that there, and it just goes right there
you
every
see
time.
That. Right.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible.
It's good. I once in a great while, not very often, but there are a few times where it's kind of crazy, and I didn't get a chance to ask the operator, but I knew. This is years and years of experience where it's like, he's not going to see that.
Yeah.
And we go back and kind of go, do you see that? Kind of thing. It wouldn't,
It's amazing what you can get away with.
it wouldn't help. It wouldn't help things, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But,
The opposite of the question that I asked, can you think back to operators who you haven't enjoyed working with, in the sense of, for a younger operator, what mistakes can an operator make working with a boom operator?
boy, that's a tough one. I haven't had too many operators that I had issues with. There were a couple operators on some shows in the 80s when possibly the Peruvian marching powder might have been more as a whatever that I had a problem with, and I went to the DP because he was forever catching me in the 80s, like, cut, boom, guy's in again.
You
It was
mean you were in the frame?
I was
boom
in the
was
frame.
in the frame, yeah.
And I was in my same spot, but and I had issues with those sort of things. But I and you talking to me earlier, and I said, I just read something about a boom guy. I think he's in New York or something, and I don't know the gentleman, but he was having a tough day, and he was in the frame a lot, and people are hollering at him, and he he finally just called out the operator and the DP, and it's like, I don't think that's good in any way, shape, or form, no matter who it is. I went to that operator that was always catching me, and we worked out a deal. It was him, but I still didn't, I didn't lambast him on it. It's like, he was on the wheels, and he was, just he was a little edgy. He would like go a half wheel too far. It's like, whoa.
to that point, because that was before I got in the business. So in the 80s, it was like coke was that prevalent on sets. It really was.
My experience, it was massively present.
But I mean, in the open.
Oh yeah,
really amazing.
Pretty much in the open.
That's unbelievable.
Well, I think everybody.
You hear about it, but
everybody. I don't know. I mean, I knew that pretty much there was, and everybody thought they were doing good work, and I know they probably were, but they certainly anything that would curtail your real good focus is not good, and there was from director on down to the last person on the set, it was fraught with that.
Well, the funny thing is, you say everybody thought they're doing good work. It's probably you're doing good work considering you're coked up.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I can't believe I can still pull this
within
off.
those small framework. Things.
Wow, that's amazing.
But I think it finally ran its course, and people realized
definitely by the time I got into the business, which is good.
I'm very happy that it did, because directors standing behind the curtain, whatever. It's just like, or back in those days of music videos where the director would work, we do like 24-hour days.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And it's
those.
like, I'm not high, but I'm having to work because you are, and those were kind of tough times. But people woke up one morning and went like, I'm not doing that anymore.
This is stupid.
This is dumb, and I'm wasting money for no reason. So So that
when you come onto a set and for rehearsal or even beforehand, is your first instinct to sort of just look, okay, where are my reflection problems? Before it's lit. Is that right off the bat?
Well, yeah, mirrors and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We did this movie just a couple years ago in Cleveland called White Noise. It's a Noah Baumbach movie with Adam Driver and Greta Gerwig, and just walking on the set the first time with the director and some other set designer and stuff, and they had these fireplace mirrors above the thing, and every room, and it's like that's going to kill me, and it's going to kill camera too. They're looking straight away; they can't move it.
Yeah.
And the DP comes in, he goes, "Oh God, we got to do something with that." It's like, thank you, sir, because we're all going to be dying on that one. If
you were mentioning about mirrors, I remember a TV show, and I can't recall what it was. I was day playing, but we were in this practical location, and it was it was probably 30 foot long room, 10 feet wide, 10-foot ceilings, and at the end of the room was this. It must have been 4 foot wide rounded mirror,
Oh.
which was in fairness one of the cooler things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I remember just going in there and saying, we're only going to look back this way, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah,
if anyone looks that way,
Yeah.
like, I don't know what
Yeah.
we're going to do. And I remember the boom operator going, I don't know how I'm going to keep out of that. And I said, well, you could just stand behind me because
Right. Yeah.
I'll be covering you.
And you know what they'll say? They'll go, we see the boom guy, not the operator.
That's exactly right.
Sorry, sound joke.
No, it's exactly That's very funny. But going back to that, maybe not. Let me ask a different way. What do you think for younger operators? How can they interact with a boom operator that's not the way that they should be doing? Like, what are mistakes that they can make? Because I think when you go in and you're a younger operator, you're just you're concerned about everything.
Right.
And now there's this guy who's putting a mic right up
Right.
to your line, which is what he's supposed to be doing. But
Right. Well, I think there's from a new operator's standpoint, I think all departments he has to interact with immediately to let them know that listen, this is my frame, and I want you to respect that frame, but you got to help me. I'll help you. You got to help me because
it's give and take.
It's got to be a give and take, and I would like to think that operators would always do that. I give full respect to the. I never want to be a camera operator. It's too tough. Would never want to do it. So I'm all for yes sir, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that you understand that I'm right with you. You change the frame, you tell me, I'm out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have, and to that point, some sound mixers that would walk you down in the frame is just the worst thing.
Where they're talking over the headphones.
Down, up.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I, there's a couple of operators along the way where it's like, after the take, it's like, is the mixer pushing you down? Because I wanted to pan up and I couldn't. It's like, I'm sorry. And I go to the mixer and I go, you are ruining my relationship with the operator right now. He goes, no, I'm just trying to get sound. It's like, we've got a $4,000 mic here. It's like 2 inches ain't going to matter. And if we're ruining the take for the operator, what do we have?
It's not usable anyway.
Not usable anyway.
Yeah.
It's like,
although now there's that weird thing of they could just paint it out, which drives me nuts because it's like,
yeah.
I know they can paint it out, but we did a lot on Ozark, which was really interesting. Ozark had we would just hold these static frames. And
Nice.
So a lot of times the boom operator, Jared, who was fantastic, I mean, he and I were attached to the hip. We had such a good time together. He would just come in and he'd go, what's your frame? And he'd put the boom mic right in. And they had a thing where they'd make a note. And in post, the editor would just basically do a wipe and pull down.
Yeah.
We'd give him 10 seconds or whatever.
Right.
So we used to joke that by the end of the show, he would be standing in with a green suit right in between the two people with a microphone just going back and forth. But he was in there all the time, and I just got used to it. And it was the first day that I was there, I was like, wait, what's going on? And then he explained because I'm thinking, well, we don't want him to have him paint things out. He goes, no, it's just a wipe. And I thought, oh yeah, because we're not moving.
Simple thing.
Yeah.
But boy, when it happens, the times where I talk to the operator and it's all fine, but I didn't talk to the camera assistant. It's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, someone else calls it. Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't talk to you about that.
Now, what about when operators have their eye on the eyepiece, specifically, sometimes now they're operating off of a monitor, but in the middle of this take, when you get the wandering eyeball,
Right.
do you keep an eye out for that?
I always do.
Are you constantly checking the operator?
Always.
Yeah.
Because they're telling me stuff.
Yeah.
That's the unspoken thing. It's like you want to make sure you're facing the camera when you're booming.
So you can see their face.
Yeah, you can see what's going on.
Because it is funny because I've often thought I must look like an absolute idiot when my left eye opens up and I'm moving my eyeball up and down. But good boom operators know exactly what it is.
Exactly.
So I did this movie, The Harder They Fall, which was a Western in New Mexico.
Right.
And they brought out Doug Schamberger from Los Angeles. He was the boom operator, and he was great. And I think we'd done some days before on something or other. So we sort of knew each other, but we never really done anything. And I was the B camera operator because Mihai Milier was the A camera operator. He was the DP, and he was on A camera. But, so I'd be on there are two things about it. One is I'd always be, of course, on the longer lens and whatever.
Right.
And the director sort of gave me free rein to do what I want. And it was a Western, so it was all exterior. So you didn't, lighting-wise, you had a lot of opportunities. And Mihai, kind of was doing his own thing, but also and would check in with me. But he kind of was like, if you find something better, if James, the director, likes it.
Right.
And so there were times where I would just be going off the fly, and Doug would always be looking at me, and I don't know how he knew, but I would just give him the big eyeball, and I'd sort of move my eye up and move it over and move it back down, and he'd know that I was going to come up high to grab something, and he'd always be pulling up and coming back down. The guy was it was kind of amazing, actually.
He's a savvy boom guy.
He really is, and it's funny because I remember talking to him about it and going, how do you know what I'm going to do? And he goes, honestly, I really don't. I just know you're doing something, and it's probably pretty wacky, so I just give you some room.
So I'm just watching you.
And then when I see the camera land, I know, okay, I'm probably back in.
We did a show called Bombshell a few years ago, and the DP was out of documentary, so he did a lot of 3-4 camera zoom lens, and they do snap zoom, like
in
that.
And out,
so I had my iPad with four-way split on it. It'd be like, yuck.
So you look,
and he'd say,
it's like a video game.
I think I caught you on that one. It's like, I know. And they was always nice about it because there were pieces and stuff. And Jay Roach was the director, and he's like, I'm only going to
cut around it,
piece of that and stuff. But it was great. And you just trying to watch. When they've snap zoomed, though, it's hard to get out. You're pulling it out, the 17-foot pole. You're pulling
but
it out.
I think, too, like you said, that's part of it, right? Because it is part of knowing, you were in, but I also realize how hard this is. So, I'm not upset at you. I'm just I'm giving you information, so you're aware of it.
So I may do this. And they were very, collaborative on that sort of thing. But I had one story on operators that I thought about when I was driving out here that I did a show, and Dean Cundy was the lovely man, and Casey Hotchkiss was the
I love Casey
also a lovely
Hotchkiss.
Man. Anyway,
I don't know if Casey Hotchkiss is a lovely man. I love Casey Hotchkiss. He's a grumpy old guy, but he's fantastic.
He's one of my favorite curmudgeons.
That's exactly. I used to joke that he was like the. You remember Andy Capp, the cartoon?
Yeah, right.
Casey's like the physical embodiment of Andy Capp, but he's a great guy and such a talented operator.
Oh yeah, very much so. But and I don't want to. I'm not trying to denigrate anybody's performance, and it's not Casey, but they had 2 cameras on this show. It was called The Holiday, and they had a gentleman, I forget his name, who was B camera, lovely man, doing what Nancy Myers had suggested for B camera, and of course Casey's doing his thing for A camera, and in the 4th week they fired the B camera operator.
Oh,
and it was like,
what's going on?
Yeah, he's doing, I think, great work. I mean, he's doing what you're asking.
Yeah.
But they brought in Todd Henry.
Okay.
And Todd Henry, he brought a whole bunch to the table where it's like, oh, see, she said this, but he's given this. And like, what if we do this kind of thing? And that was the difference. That was what she wanted, but she didn't know what to say. She wanted him to bring that, and he was giving her what she asked for.
So he was just basically going, you asked for a pan from here to here, so that's what I'm going to give you. But Todd Henry came in and said, well, I can connect this to that to that, give her what she wants.
What if I, at the end, kind of go up like that? It's like, oh, genius.
Yeah, there's something more there.
It was just one of those things like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Although, and the weird thing is, and it's, I mentor a lot of 600 people, and one of the things that I always tell them is that it's a perfect story, but then also you got to be reading the room to make sure that, like, for instance, the DP wants you to be doing that, because if the DP goes, no, we didn't ask for that. There are some people who don't want you to do that.
Right, exactly.
And it's hard to know.
And he might have come off a show where that actually took place, where it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I want a whole frame.
I didn't ask for that. I asked for this. Yeah.
Don't be just, going off willy-nilly on your own here. This is not your movie.
That's exactly right. So it is that weird thing. I mean, I often say that, I think one of the best things you could do to be a good filmmaker is take psychology classes, because you could read people and understand.
Right.
And that's most of what we do, right, on set.
Right. Yeah, you put your toe in the water, it's like, she seemed okay with that. I'll try this.
You push it a little bit, and then
Yeah.
you I'm assuming that this is the case, but I'll ask you, because for an operator, like we were talking about the first 5 days, really for me, it's like the first 1 or 2 days.
It is, yeah.
I'm sort of pushing everybody and testing everybody a little bit in good ways, but just to find out, do they know what they're doing? Do they know what I'm doing? Are they a
Exactly.
collaborator? Do you do the same thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. With the gaffer and the key grip. And, gaffer and key grip, I mean, I've been saved so many times by the, a great gaffer or the wonderful key grips I've worked with over the years that just saved my bacon so many times.
As far as taking you out of a shadow on a back wall or
Yeah,
whatever.
taking a shadow out or this or that, I just drop it down to, that flag just an inch should be fine.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are DPs that I remain nameless who for some reason, I don't know, don't have that much love for the sound department. So if a flag is going to be adjusted, the key grip to my, help saves me, and he doesn't tell the DP, it's not going to change anything. But if the DP knows, it's like, what? Is that for sound? No, take it out. Take
Just
it down
because
one.
it's for sound.
Yeah, because it's for sound. It happened in the early days a lot.
Yeah.
Or you'd go into the set to watch the hard light, to work the shot, and the DP would go like, hey, you're too early. Don't, you come in later. So I'd come in later, and they go, oh, you're too late. Like, how we're playing that game. Okay. Those are old time DPs, but
Yeah.
but I got along with them. They realize that I'm standing outside the door watching, and I'll come in when you say, sir. But I already know what the lighting is.
I already know what my problems are.
I already know my problems
Yeah.
and my hopefully solutions. So
Yeah.
and that's the trust.
And absolutely. And to that point, so on day one, are you sort of watching the key grip and the gaffer to go, are they going to beat me to the punch of taking me, like, or do they already know that I have a shadow problem, and are they going to take me out of that, or do I have to
Some
say
do,
it?
some don't.
Yeah.
I just did a commercial a couple of weeks ago, and there was a scoop light that was way up in this recording studio where we were shooting, and I said, is there any way you could, put a flag over that? He goes, what? We're not shooting there. It's like, yeah, but we're getting ready, and if they shoot that way, that's a death ray, whatever. And he goes, okay. And then we turned around and shot the other way, and that flag was up there, and it was already there. And he came over and he goes, yeah, I grumped at you, but you were right.
Well, and that's that collaboration that we're.
I just
talking
wanted to
about,
ask
yeah.
early, because it's like, when
I know where
they're
this
ready
is
to go,
going.
and they go, you got a shadow. It's too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what makes a good operator too, is you're thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead. With me, it's usually more about like thinking about the coverage and, okay, we're going to be looking that way, or this is going to be a problem here. You're thinking those shots ahead.
Right.
I mentioned Ozark and my buddy Jared, who is the only time I've ever worked with him, but I'd work with him every day of the week. I mean, he was just, first of all, he's a great boom operator and just a very funny guy and just a nice guy, and we just had an absolute blast. But he would come up to me on, when shots would get a little crazy and there was just tons of stuff, and he'd just go, hey, I'm not trying to get in you, I'm not trying to get on you, but just so you know, that's going to kill you over. And oh God, thank you. He'd be an extra
Right.
set of eyes, and that's only because we had a good relationship, and he also knew that I would. I'd take a
You'd take
bullet
it the
for
right
him
way, yeah.
if I had. I'd take the right way, but also
Right.
that I'd pull him out of the fire if something came up. Because I think that's the key, is if you
I
have
think
each
that's
other's
good.
backs.
And that you'd only be receptive to that if you had the trust, or you trusted that guy and he trusted you, kind of
And
thing.
I think the other part of it, which again comes back to, part of this reason for this podcast was try to put information out there for younger operators. It's also about, you've been doing this long enough. I've been doing this long enough. we have confidence in our abilities, so we're not second guessing. I mean, I second guess myself all the time,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, you're like, I know how to do this generally.
Yeah. The second guessing on the way home, it's like,
I shouldn't have done that.
maybe.
But when you're younger, you are second guessing yourself,
Right.
and so then the last thing you want to do is have another piece in there, and then it
Right.
gets a little tough. But
And that's the thing for younger operators. It's like, I'm already having a tough time. I don't need the extra problems that might happen. It's like, just stay out of the shot kind of thing. It's like, well, understanding that they're in there for capture their portion of things too.
It's not that
tough.
simple. Yeah.
I worked, I did a couple movies with Andrew Rowlands.
Oh, great opera. Now a great cinematographer.
Just a great cinematographer. And we were doing, I think it was later toward the end of the show, and we were outside, and they were doing a little second unit shot, and we participated, and Andrew was DPing the shot, and so they got green screen out there, and we're at the Manhattan Beach, campus, and he's busy, and I mean it's overwhelming to step up to a new job.
Yeah.
And I got a story about that too. But step up to a new job anyway. The sun kept coming down, and it was blasting along the green screen, and I thought he probably knew that, but it was like, Andrew, there's gonna be a problem with the thing. He goes, oh shit, thank you. Hey, get a thing down there.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. There's that weird thing of like, look, I don't want to tell you what your job is,
Right,
but
yeah.
it's also not getting changed, and I want to help you. And
Right. And I easily expected, like, I know that, Randy.
yeah, exactly. And we're on it, but
okay.
still. But you'd rather do that than have someone you like, you
Right.
know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But what you said you have a story about jumping up?
No, it's faded from memory. Sorry, it was a good one too, but
That's all right. Well, it'll come back to you.
Yeah, it'll come back.
So I mentioned early on, and I want to ask you about this. You have been inducted into the Academy of Arts and Sciences.
I did, with the help of some amazingly wonderful mixers from the sound branch who stood up and it kind of pushed me through, which I was blown away, amazed, and in awe of, because it's an institution that it's just my peers and people I respect and look up to, and it's just, to be part of is amazing.
And for people who are listening, to the best of my knowledge, you don't get into the Academy unless you've won an Academy Award or been nominated for an Academy Award. But it's not just anybody who gets in there.
No, yeah, it has to be. Well, I don't know how it all works. They have to stand up. Members have to stand up and say, I think we'd like to nominate this gentleman or lady.
Yeah.
And then the sound branch, votes on that. But yeah, there has to be, I guess, credits to substantiate.
You've got to be someone serious to get into the Academy or have won something.
Yeah,
won
I
an
mean,
award.
I was amazed. There were quite a few really deserving, probably much more deserving sound folks than me that got in, but I don't know. I was a lucky vote, and I'm very happy to be part of it. And we have our first meeting that I'm going to be participating in tomorrow, and I'm a newbie, and I'm happy to be a newbie. So it was great. I went to they have a sound bake-off each year to show 5-minute clips of all the movies that have been nominated for sound, and it just the membership was so welcoming and that sort of thing, and it's just great to be part of. So I'm.
And you must know a lot of those people, I would imagine.
I do know quite
That's
a few.
fantastic. Have there been other boom operators who have been brought into the Academy?
Well, I think, and there are. I don't know Arthur's last name, but there's me from America, and I think there's 3 or 4 other boom gentlemen from Europe. I know Arthur is British. And there's a number of other, and I apologize that I don't have their names on the tip of my tongue, but yeah, I'm not the only one. But it's the first grouping of boom people, because they talked about it, I think, for years, that they, we should, and, it's been going back and forth, but the constant pushing from, Peter Devlin or Peter Kurland or Lisa Pinero or Lee Orloff or all those great sound folks, Paul Ledford, they finally went like, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll let those folks in. So,
well, that's an amazing honor, and I would say well-deserved.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I very, at the end of my career here, just to have somebody put that as something I could be participating in was just beyond. It kind of makes your whole career like that so great.
It's a hat tip, right?
Yeah, it's a little tip of the hat.
Yeah, it's nice. Just because I did want to ask you about it, you worked on Cop Rock.
Yeah.
Now, for anybody who doesn't know, Cop Rock was a Stephen Bochco show, I think.
Bochco, yeah.
And it was police. I guess you'd say it was a drama, but it was a musical. And they would, I mean, what were there? There were it was an hour-long show, and there were, 3 or 4 full-on musicals every
full-on.
show?
5 songs.
Yeah.
5 songs, all written by Randy Newman. Amazing.
Right?
Amazing stuff. And we, it's like,
And they weren't just musical. I mean, they were musicals in the sense that they were like full-on dance reviews.
Full-on dance moves, up over the hills of L.A. And there was one scene in the pilot. I only did the pilot.
You only did the pilot,
yeah,
because I think it went 12 episodes maybe or something like that.
There's one scene where this white couple in a Volvo wanted a baby, and this, I forget her name, Catherine something or other, actress, played the crack addict who was selling her baby to the couple.
God.
And
There's
for
a
some
musical
weird
right
reason,
there.
3 times we had to shoot. 3 times. The 3rd time, same thing. Grips are just sobbing. I mean, because it was just such an emotional
Oh my gosh,
thing.
really?
The 3rd time, they'd seen it 3 times, and they're still.
Well, you're saying you had to stop the shot because
No, 3 times we shot it. I mean, maybe there was it.
Oh, something changed. And you had
Changed
to
in the
shoot 3
soup
separate
or,
times.
One of the staples. I don't know. We
and it
shot
was
it 3 times.
It was still devastating.
Still devastating.
Oh my gosh.
Because the song was amazing, the acting was amazing, and the whole concept, every dad and the thing, it was just one of those great things.
Wow.
But it was great, and it was.
It was ahead of its time because you look at it's a high school thing, but you look at Glee, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Glee was the biggest hit.
And they were like, God, Cop Rock. God.
Yeah, people were like, what are they doing? They're singing, and again, it's like Randy Newman is writing this song.
And we went in to record Randy in his in a studio.
Oh, really? Huh.
I think they used it in the pilot at the end of the credits or something like that. But it was just fascinating. I mean, I think Randy Newman's amazing, and the songs were amazing.
Yeah.
But the sound mixer, David Ronnie, has since passed away, lovely man. They asked us. They said, "Okay, we're going to do the series in August. Would you like to participate?" And David looks at me and he goes, "I think I'm going to be mowing my lawn during that time," because he knew how difficult it was. Because it's a TV schedule, and they want to do 5 live songs live.
Wait, the songs were live. You were recording the vocals live,
right?
They were not lip syncing to playback.
No, it was all live.
That's amazing.
And they
did that during the series too.
Well, that's the whole deal.
Oh.
My capper to the story, I guess maybe 5 months later, I was working at Fox Studios on House or something like that, just for a couple of days. And I walked by the stage next door, and I saw Cop Rock, and I was like, oh, I got to go in. So I walk inside, and it's just pandemonium. And the mixer is right up against the wall in the fire lane. Totally illegal.
Yeah, completely illegal.
And he's got stuff going and 80s hollering and he goes, roll. And the mixer said something like, we're having a problem with the so-and-so. He goes, all right, we'll just do playback. And they did playback, but I kind of stepped out the door like, whew. Because they have 5 live songs, and they obviously go to playback a lot when they can't do it, but 5 live songs, and Phil Palmer, who was the sound mixer in Glee for all those years, he was my cable guy for years. He did a masterful job doing that every day.
Yeah.
Shockingly, and the technology was much, much better.
Was Glee live too? Or was Glee playback? I think Glee may have been playback.
I think there was both to that.
That could be. I day played there a little bit, and the stuff I remember was playback, but that was also like
I'd have to talk to Phil about that, but I thought early on they wanted live, and they did live because they were incredible singers and dancers and stuff. So I don't know. That I wasn't.
Yeah.
Part
Interesting. Is there a movie or a TV show that you worked on that you is one of those things that's just a great piece of entertainment that never got its due, that you don't think got as much credit as it deserves?
One of my favorite
besides
ones,
Cop Rock.
my favorite ones is probably Inside Llewyn Davis.
Oh, great!
Just
movie.
because that was the story of Joel, enjoying what we did, and what he wanted to do was do all the songs live, but he wasn't sure that he was going to be able to do that. And we, took old 50s, 60s mics and replaced them with present day mics in there. And
so they would look correct on camera, but you'd actually get the good sound.
Wide shot, but that sort of thing. And it was more the fact that Oscar Isaac, who is a Juilliard trained musician, for every single angle, he was spot on in terms of a metronome. And T-Bone Burnett was the music.
Wait, in terms of his metronome, what does that mean?
That means, you have to stay on pace, on beat for every different angle of the song.
Oh, sure.
If it's live, because if you fall out of it, you can't do it. You got to go to some other thing. So T-Bone Burnett is sitting behind us with the, recording, and he's looking at the metronome and he's going like, it's just inhuman. He said, I've never met anybody that could do that. He's spot on.
That's
every
amazing.
Single time.
Wow.
In every single song he did.
Huh.
So it wasn't necessarily us that did anything different, but he was able to use the live thing. And it was just a great 60s
It's a great movie, but you're right. It sort of disappeared a little bit. It didn't
It
really
kind of
make much
did,
of a splash.
but it just because I'm, older gentleman, and those years, even working on the set, looking at the audience who were in, alpaca sweaters and and slacks and stuff, and you go, it's 62 or 3, and Dylan hasn't showed up, and these people in the audience are going to drastically look different in about 2 years, like long hair and the beard and the whole thing. But right now they're preppy kids that are enjoying the music. It's just kind of a moment in time that I kind of was part of.
Resonated. Yeah.
That's resonated
cool.
with me for sure.
That's very cool. Talking about the Coen brothers, I'll tell you quickly my Frances McDormand story.
Okay. Love Frances.
First of all, my first day on set, she was there, and she kind of looked around, and she locked eyes with me. And she came up to me and she goes, I don't know you. And I said, I'm Dave. And, oh, hi, I'm Frances. And I'm thinking, I know you're Frances.
Yeah,
and she goes, what do you do? And I said, I'm Steadicam. Oh, we have Steadicam today. She was so excited. And then I don't remember what, Bruno was shooting, some other shot at Bruno Delbonnel, the DP, amazing DP. And we were in that huge set with the cornfield and the
right.
burned down house, which was just amazing, with those like digital moving clouds that sort of like, unless you looked at them, you could tell they were moving. But it was an amazing set.
Pretty amazing.
But and I was sitting out on the back of the truck, and she's across the way, and she looked over and she goes, Dave. And I said, yeah. She goes, come here. And I go over, and she's got a broom and a dustpan. And I said, What are you doing, Frances? She goes, I'm sweeping up. Hold the dustpan. And she's sweeping. I said, Frances, I think that there are people who, we're on the Warner Brothers line.
Yeah.
I think there are people who are doing that. She goes, this is our home for the next 2 months. It's our job to keep it clean. Now, you have a problem with this? I was like, no, I don't have a problem with it at all. And she goes, okay. She goes, go put that over there. And I said, you done? She goes, yeah. And she goes upstairs and whatever. But she's just like the most normal.
She really is.
And down-to-earth and wonderful person.
She really is. And as actress-wise, I kind of put her in the Meryl Streep thing where she could read, a section of a manual from a
phone book
from a whatever, and
Yeah.
you'd go live. I'm there for you. I understand and and behind every word you're saying.
She's astounding. When you're booming a scene, obviously you're listening to the dialogue because you have to know when to cue people and whatever. But do you get pulled into the story, or are you sort of removed from it because you're doing a technical thing?
I've been in watching actors that I was just blown away by their performance. I've been taken in where it's like, oh God, I've got to go to the other person because it is fascinating, and that's the great thing about booming and operating, that you don't get back as a mixer back there. It's like you were watching, like some artistry that sometimes we are privy to some amazing stuff, and to that end, I try to stay in the moment, but I've been taken out of it by a number of great performances, and there's an interesting thing to that end of that. I'm 2 feet off lens, and I have many times finished a shot and had the director go like, "That's great, that's print," and I looked over like, "Really?" I mean, it looked like the guy didn't have it or the lady didn't have it. It wasn't anywhere near good at all. I mean, from my point of view. And yet I go to dailies and it's like right down the lens. That was the magic.
That
and
2 feet makes
it.
the difference.
I missed it, like just 2 feet away.
Amazing.
And I've been shocked a number of times when I go to dailies like, that's pretty darn good. And just like, I mean, director sees it. I didn't see it.
And because I'm going to ask you one other question because you mentioned it. You miss going to dailies?
Very much so.
Why?
Love dailies.
What about
Lunchtime dailies were my favorite time of the day because you learn so much about what you can do, what you can't do, what the operator was trying to do, what the lighting. It's a tour de force lesson every day, and I loved it. And they allowed me to go. It was just the greatest thing. And it's so sad that it's not part of the thing anymore. But
it's a huge loss. I miss it greatly because. It was, and it's just, you can watch them online. Well, first of all, they never work, but that's another thing. But it's not the same as being in the room with people where you're collaborating.
Full screen?
Talking. Full screen, yeah, the way it's supposed to be.
So amazing.
Amazing. Good night and good luck. Good movie to work on?
It was a great experience. It had a great time period, which I thought George really nailed in terms of, because it was his passion to that whole area. The actors were great. Just really an interesting thing. Robert Downey Jr. was the only one, and he did a great job, I thought. But I overheard toward the end of the show, and this was when Robert, I think he'd just come out of his, some of his issues that he had. And so anyway, he did a great job acting, but I overheard Robert talking to George saying, like, I've never had a worse time in my life working on a movie. And George was just shocked because he wants to make sure that the experience is good. And he kind of goes, well, if you hadn't gone back to your trailer after every shot, you might have seen that we were having a good time. Which is pure George.
Yeah.
But I guess I've done six, 7 movies with George. I did George's first movie he ever did in Kentucky in 1981.
Which was what?
And They're Off.
Wow.
It was a Jose Ferrer starring show, and since George was selling shoes in Kentucky on the other side of the river from Cincinnati, and he and Raphael and Miguel, came over to visit their uncle, and so Jose said, "Can my knucklehead nephews be in the movie?" And they go, "Yeah, sure." And as George tells it, after their one small stint, they decided to jump in his '67 Tempest and drive to Hollywood and be actors and chase women.
That sounds
George,
about right.
George would smile and go, "Hadn't turned out too bad, has it?" It's like, not for you, George.
That's
Certainly
100% him. He is one of the most wonderful people. I mean, I haven't seen him forever, but the 3 years
He's just a big kid. He's just a big.
The 3 years that I spent with him on the air. Talk about someone who is so aware of how lucky he is. And I'm not saying lucky that he hasn't earned it, because he
Right.
has.
No, he's
but just
put in his dues.
That a lot of it's luck. I mean, he used to say, and I'm sure you heard him say this, that he's the what is it, the oldest overnight sensation ever,
Right.
or something, because he was like his 20-year overnight sensation,
Right.
or something like that.
He said, and all the mistakes he's made, like the Batman suit with the nipples. And
Yep.
So
No,
it's always.
He's I remember. I remember so many things about.
Yeah.
He was just a lot. He was a lot of fun.
He had a lot of
He
fun.
was a lot of fun. But yeah, George is one of a kind. And by the way, it never surprised me when it came out. Such a talented director.
Really, very, very on top of things. That on Good Night, Good Luck. He researched it so well, and set design was, he was very particular about it. And he loved the fact there was one thing that they copied from the 30s movies, where the spinning elevator set.
Oh yeah,
Where they get in, or spin, the camera be in there with me, and
Yeah.
spin around and come out to another set. He just loved that. I mean, those sort of 50s attributes, he just thought was just the greatest thing.
Well, I remember, he used to always talk about like the golden age of television and live television. That's why we did a live episode of VR.
Right.
Just
Right.
because he was so in love with the concept. And after that, a couple of years later, I worked on the live version of Failsafe, which was, a 2-hour TV movie with 4 stages, and
Wow.
Walter Cronkite, and
So great.
just amazing.
Yeah.
I remember that. Noah Wiley was over on the stage where Walter Cronkite is, and he came into me and he goes, "I just talked to Walter Cronkite." But
Because
George
that's the way it is.
yeah, George was just like a big kid, and it was it couldn't have happened to a nicer person.
No,
So,
I agree. I just, and he's so grounded. I did one of the shows I did was a Solaris thing, which is a Soderbergh thing, and he plays a spaceman and stuff. And I had some friends from back east where I grew up in Maine, and they came to the set and visited, and we came out of the stage, and George was standing there, and I said, "Hey, George, this is my friends Mike Clark and his wife, and my knucklehead buddy thinks he's humorous or something like that." And George goes, "Hi, George," and he goes, "George who?" And I was ready to slap him. I was like, "You son of a bee!" And George goes, "Exactly." Which was like pure George.
that's classic. That's great. Yeah, he's a good guy. Well, Randy, this has been fantastic. I'm going to leave you with sort of 2 questions that are kind of the same question, if I will. But thank you so much for this. It's like these stories and the information. Also, just to sit down with you. Actually, no. Before I do that, I'm going to ask you one other question, which I've never understood. When I came to Hollywood.
Yeah. See?
There was this weird palpable thing, which I don't think exists anymore, about how like camera and sound were against each other.
Right.
Right? Am I wrong?
No, it's absolutely true.
I don't think it exists anymore. It doesn't exist the way it did. But
No, it didn't.
There was this weird thing, and I'd just be like, wait, but if you can't hear it, it's,
Right.
No,
there definitely was. When I started in the 70s, it definitely was that between Gaffer and
I'll put my
DP.
light where I want. You figure it out, as opposed to like we're working together.
One story I was working on Hill Street Blues. Just I would fill in when they do the roll call room. They'd have 2 boom guys and then 2 utility folks for the 2 days out of every 7 days or something.
Right, so you were there hey, let's be careful out there.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's why that was.
That's great.
But the main boom guy, Chris McLaughlin. There was another time period, and he'd be on the Fisher boom, and he'd say to the gaffer, like, I got a shadow in that light. You got to move it. And the gaffer would go, "I'm going to light you out of this set." And this is across the set, and the boom guy like, "You're not effing smart enough."
And they're screaming across the set.
They're screaming across the set. I'm like, I could never, I just couldn't do that. I mean,
But were they messing around, or were they serious? Or somewhere
who's to
in
say?
between?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It could have escalated into something else.
Yeah.
But it had that sort of, I remember there was a sound mixer who did, I can think of his name now, Jack Solomon, who did a lot of the John Ford movies. And back in those days, he wrote a book or wrote a something for the IA 695, and every story about John Ford was, he told me to F up, and I punched him, and we argued, and then I went on to do his next 6 pictures. Every story wrapped up with we argued, and then we made up.
Wow.
And it was that it's just it's a different world now.
I'll share this story with you from ER because I think you'll probably enjoy it. But it goes to what I was talking about not understanding how camera and sound were against each other, which I was just I don't understand that. And, I want to work with everybody. But I came on ER. I was 26 years old. And anybody who listens to all these podcasts will probably be like, great, here he goes talking about ER again. And Lowell Harris was the mixer, who was just this, he was a great old mixer. He'd been around forever and a little bit crusty sometimes, but in a nice way.
A
nice way. Knew so much and was so good to me because I knew I made a lot of mistakes early on. But his boom operator was James Clark. And James was... I was 26 and James was 25. We were these 2 kids. We were on this huge show, and both of us, and we, and ER were he'd be running around right on my back, but and we were tied at the hip, and we had this one shot, this massive shot, and I don't remember the director or whatever, but it's just one of those ER shots that just went on forever. Right. And of course, as you know, the whole thing about doing a shot like that is figuring out what the length of the boom pole is going to be, because you got to be able to get it into a scene, but you also got to be able to, especially on that, get around corners and get behind
long pole, short pole syndrome.
And I don't remember, and maybe I would imagine that they had wires on them, but you couldn't rely on them maybe back then, or maybe they didn't even have wires on them. I don't know.
They were not reliable at all.
But it wasn't really oh, James, you could just get out of this part because they'll take it on the wires. And I remember we were trying to figure it out because he needed a very long pole for most of it, but there was one part where I had to pivot someone through the frame, and so I was preceding them, and then they would go around, and then I'd follow them. And James just couldn't get out of the shot. It wasn't even that he couldn't boom it; it's just he couldn't get out of the shot. And I remember Lowell coming in and going, we're not going to be able to do this. They finally came up with it, and we're Lowell, we're going to figure it out. And he walked out, and James looks at me and he goes, I don't know. I don't think we can figure this out. I don't know how to get out of the shot. And I looked at him. I said, James, what if you stay in the shot? And he goes, I can't stay. I said, no, but what if you stay in the shot? We don't see the boom pole. And he goes, so I said, well, let's just figure out a way to keep you in the shot somehow. I don't know, but I'll pan through you quickly or whatever. And I think he may have come up with the idea, but what we ended up doing was, it was a lobby or whatever, and there were always workmen around. So we got a ladder, and we put someone up high so you just saw their feet, as if they were standing doing something. And then we put one of our tallest guys there, and we put James in a workman's uniform, a maintenance uniform.
Right.
And as I came around, he just put the boom up in the air. And as he put the boom up in the air as if he was holding something above the frame, the other guy was handing down a fluorescent tube to the guy. And we just went through it. And you just thought it was a maintenance guy. You didn't know what he was doing. It didn't make a difference because half a second, right? And then he just followed off with me. And Lowell came up, I remember afterwards. Both of us were so proud of ourselves. And Lowell came up to afterwards and was like, yeah, that was all right.
Lowell,
he sort of give it to us, but not, but I think he was actually impressed with it. And I just remember that. But James and I would constantly be working stuff because I couldn't not work with him, and he couldn't not work with me. It was, and
that's the thing, those days before wires, you had to make it work. This is there's no other option here. I have to get in there somehow.
Yeah.
So you worked out those things, and I love that if you don't have the so-and-so back at Video Village going, just use the wires.
Yeah, exactly.
And certainly they're there, but, we're trying for something better if we could.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for doing this and for all of your stories and your wisdom. And are you officially retired?
I am retired, but in our business, luckily you're allowed to, and only because I am so old that they allow you to work. It's if you want to continue working.
If you're dumb enough to want to work.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Go
so
right
I may
ahead.
still work with you again, hopefully.
So, yeah, I'm we got a couple of shows that are coming up that I would
Nice.
like to participate in. So
That's great. That's great. So the question I'll leave you that I've sort of leave with everybody is advice for a younger operator coming into the business on how to succeed, and also, by the way, maybe mixed in with advice that you wish you had had when you were first coming into the business, lessons learned and what it takes to succeed.
I think coming into the business, if I had seen the business the way I see it now, which is when I sit on a set and I watch everybody work, it's like a ballet. When it's done well, every single person is just doing something that, a normal 9-to-5 folks don't do. Like, you try to put 100 people in one room and with 100 extras and somehow make that all work and kindly and politely and professionally get it done, that's just the greatest thing. And I don't think I really saw that when I was beginning, because maybe you're just so wide-eyed and stupid that you don't see those things. But I've come to realize over the years that just what a dance it is, and what it's not easy, and it's but when it's done wonderfully, when it's done right, it's a thing to behold.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.